Recording is on.
Done.
All right. Welcome all. This is Global Accessibility Awareness Day 2025 for Bitcoin Design. And we're going to be talking on Workshop 2 today about accessibility testing, tools, and design pattern resources. So bear with me just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and present my screen so that you can see it in full view. We had a really good talk earlier today. We had some good questions related to personas around accessibility and some of the accessibility testing tools. So I hope to continue that conversation a little bit and dive in a little bit deeper.
Let's go.
Without further ado, I've done a couple of talks over the past couple of weeks. One was called Designing for the Edges. And it's really important that we keep that in mind, that these edge use cases often surface accessibility issues and other issues that affect all users that you normally wouldn't surface if you just have, your favorite, the folks that are your fan base testing your app, right? So when you start testing with screen reader users, you start testing with folks with cognitive disabilities, you start testing with keyboard-only users. A lot of times you find these little things that you can tweak to improve the experience for all. So I really want to continue that conversation and keep that at the forefront of everyone's mind. What I want us to do today is answer this question. Can you set up your favorite Bitcoin wallet using only a keyboard or screen reader? I know that we tried testing that in the last session, but this session I want to walk through a particular wallet and see if we can get through it.
Okay.
Also, user testing is experiential. It's not just automated testing. So there's lots of great tools out there. We're going to talk about some of those tools here towards the end. And they do a lot of great work, for automating the accessibility testing. But really, it comes down to the experience of the end user. So, we want to make sure that we're testing with end users here. Hey, Eric. Welcome.
Hey.
Hey, thanks for hopping on, Eric.
We're just getting started here.
Sweet.
So I've created this tools and resources. If you haven't had a chance to take a look at it yet, I would highly recommend it. Let's see if I can show it over here. Is that showing up on the screen? No, it's not. Okay. Regardless, if you scan the QR code, it will take you to my GitHub, and there's a link for Bitcoin-Universal-Design. And in this accessibility guide that I've created, there's a tab for resources here. So a lot of the resources we're going to be going through today are in this tab, and there's links there, the short descriptions of everything. So I highly recommend you have this up in a browser window, just kind of follow along and maybe ask questions about some of the other tools and how they might impact accessibility testing.
Cool. Yeah, I have it up. I think I might have seen this before. There was a PR to include this, I think.
Go ahead and just scan this. Yep. It's taking me to GitHub.
Yes. It's a GitHub Pages site.
Okay. Yeah. I've got it on my phone.
Excellent. All right. So we'll talk a little bit about manual testing on Android. So there's really some basic things that we want to do there. We want to enable talkback. We want to navigate the app with gestures. We did a little bit of this earlier today. We also want to navigate using a Bluetooth keyboard, which I previously mentioned. That's something that I keep next to me and use daily when navigating mobile applications. We also want to use tools like voice access that are going to allow us to use our speech to text. Then we want to enable high contrast or color inversion settings, large text, magnification, and other accessibility shortcuts. One of those accessibility shortcuts that I would recommend is the accessibility scanner. And you can get that from the Google Play Store. It's actually a Google application. And what it is, it's basically a quick scanner. So you can record the screen and walk through a flow, or you can just take a screenshot and have it do an accessibility analysis, an automated accessibility analysis of that screen. And a lot of times it will point you to some areas to kind of dig a bit deeper. Sometimes it gives you some false positives. So it's not an end-all be-all tool, but it is something that is very useful for just getting that initial snapshot and kind of understanding, okay, maybe I should look in this menu a little bit more. There seems to be a lot of issues over here. So we talked about manual testing on iOS earlier as well. Once again, when we're testing on iOS, when I'm manually testing myself in my day job, these are the things that I'm really doing more often than not, right? So I'm enabling VoiceOver. I'm navigating the app via gestures. Double tap is going to activate controls. And then there's rotor navigation and explore by touch, which we didn't talk about earlier, but it is another way that screen reader users can navigate quickly through a complex interface. So if you place 2 fingers on your screen when you have VoiceOver on and you turn them, it will actually open up a dial and you can switch between different types of elements. So you can switch between headings, you can switch between lists, you can switch between controls. And then once you've selected the element that you want to focus on, then you can use a single swipe down or single swipe up to navigate to the next list, for example, or the next table, or the next button or control. So this is very helpful for very complex interfaces. Like for example, maybe you have a website that's being wrapped into a web view that's being pulled into a mobile app, right? And the website might have a lot of options. It might be very complex. You might have a lot of menu options at the top. If the user wants to skip past all that, they're going to use something like the rotor navigation to do that. Another thing that we can do on iOS is enable dynamic type, which we talked about earlier. That is going to give you an Apple system font that is enabled to be enlarged quite a bit. But there's some issues there in web views where you want to make sure that you have a fallback system font setting set in your CSS so that it actually does work within a web view. And then we can also increase contrast. There's a bunch of different settings on iOS. Some I use more often than others, but these are really the ones that I use most often. Another thing is enabling full keyboard access. So when you're testing keyboard on iOS, there's a little bit different behavior if you don't have full keyboard access turned on. So somebody who is using keyboard solely as their input device is probably going to have full keyboard access turned on, which is going to provide a more consistent experience when tabbing through elements on the screen, for example. If you don't have full keyboard access turned on, then you may find that there's some elements that you just can't get to, or that may be a little bit trickier to get to, and the keyboard commands don't necessarily work the same way. I'd also recommend testing with voice controls and switch controls, which we talked about earlier. So testing on desktop is a little bit different. That's primarily where I started testing. There's a couple of different screen readers you can use. There's JAWS, there's VoiceOver on Mac, there's NVDA, there's Orca on Linux, and then there's Chromevox on Chromebooks. But yeah, you want to navigate using keyboard only, using tab or shift tab, enter in space. And I like to start with accessibility testing with screen readers because you end up covering a lot of ground very quickly because there's a lot of overlap between different disability types. So for example, screen reader users, they only are most of the time going to be using just the keyboard to navigate. So that's going to help with, switch control users and with other folks that may just be using a keyboard alone. And also you're looking more at the design patterns in general and how that they're coded. So you're looking more to ensure some consistency there and that you're following an accessible design pattern. And a lot of those issues surface a little bit better when you're testing with a screen reader. Also, zooming to 200 and 400% is very helpful. And then using grayscale or color filters if available. So all modern operating systems have some of this. Yes, go ahead.
So I don't know if do you want to save questions for the end or should we save them as they're
No,
relevant?
we can ask questions as we go. I want this to be kind of interactive, so
Okay, cool.
please.
Yeah, I have a question about like navigating with keyboard, especially
Sure.
with. Are you familiar with like focus states on buttons?
Slightly, yeah.
Because one of the things when what I come across designing is that sometimes design systems don't have focus states, and I'm wondering like if you're navigating with the screen reader and there are focus states or there aren't focus states, does I'm sorry, if you're navigating with a keyboard only,
Yeah.
and if a button is focused, if a design system has a focus state or if it doesn't, does that affect the navigation or maybe the screen reader? Can it read that, hey, this button is in focus, so if you were to hit enter, it's automatically going to do that action?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good question because when you turn a screen reader on, it's actually going to provide its native or its screen reader focus indication. So it's going to overlap, or like for example, on iOS, if you're testing with a keyboard and with VoiceOver turned on, you're going to have a focus indication for each interactive element that you land on.
Okay.
But you want to test with that turned off, right? Because you want to see if that focus indication is coming up by default without a screen reader turned on, right? And if it's not showing up there, then that's very difficult for maybe a screen magnification user, right? Who may be using a keyboard as well. So they may be zoomed in very closely on a particular area of the screen, and they might be tabbing around, and it can be very easy to get lost if you don't have a focus indication telling you where you're at on the page, right? So yeah, it's important to have visible focus indication that's at least 3-to-1 contrast ratio for all interactive elements. But one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to provide a visible focus indication for non-interactive elements. So a lot of times developers will go overboard and they'll start, adding focus indication to just plain text and things like that. So that's something to avoid as well, because then the user thinks it's an actionable control, and in fact they can't do anything with it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So what I want us to do is kind of jump into a live testing demonstration. So if you're on and you have the ability, I would like you to open up on iOS, Android, or a desktop,
Okay.
Proton Wallet, and see if you can get through the initial setup and navigate the home screen using a screen reader. So I've actually got it set up on desktop here too, so we can walk through that briefly afterwards. But I just want to see what kind of issues we're finding there and whether there's any differences between iOS, Android, and desktop. So Mo, do you have iOS?
Android.
Android, okay, good.
So should I just go ahead and install it?
Yeah, I would go ahead and install the app and then just use like a burner email or something to set it up initially.
Okay.
And see if you can get through the initial setup screens.
Using accessibility turned on.
Yes, with VoiceOver turned on. Correct.
Okay, so let me just turn on VoiceOver first.
Okay. Sorry, TalkBack on your device.
Yeah, TalkBack. Go ahead and turn it on right now.
And what about you, Eric? Are you using Android, iOS?
Should we be doing this on mobile or desktop?
You can do it on desktop if you like. I'm going to walk through it on desktop afterwards, but.
Yeah, I'd want to test on desktop. So I'm on Mac system settings, accessibility.
Perfect. So to open it up on Mac, what you want to do is use Command F5.
I don't have F5. Wait. Yeah, I have like a weird keyboard.
Yeah, so if you have a weird keyboard, like I'm using a Windows keyboard, for example, and I would use the Windows key plus F5.
What's the function? Maybe I can find it in accessibility settings where I am now, because I don't see screen reader. I see VoiceOver.
Yeah, it's VoiceOver. Yeah, okay. VoiceOver is the screen reader. That's correct.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll turn it on then.
Yeah, so once you have that turned on, then you're going to want to use Control and Option keys plus the arrow keys to navigate.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different than testing with NVDA on Windows, which is normally you're going to test with just using the tab key.
Speech rate 120. Speech rate 100.
I'm just busy fiddling around. Here.
fine.
Speech rate 100
And D, what about you? Do you have a device ready to go?
A device, but I don't take Proton Wallet, so I'm here trying to downloading it and see how I go.
Perfect. And are you using iOS or Android?
unlock.
iOS.
Speech rate
iOS. So we'll get both experiences.
unlock.
There you go.
Yeah, my phone is kind of a bit frozen right now, so I'll just.
Double tap
That's
to
okay.
device. Speech rate 100%.
So did you turn on the quick access setting
To enter the
for your home key? So you should be able to triple tap the home key to turn on voiceover or turn it off.
guided
If you
frame.
set that up.
Camera.
No, how do I set that up?
Speech rate 100%.
Okay. So
100%.
if you triple tap it right now, what does it do? Does it do anything?
With 3 fingers
Triple
to
tap
select a different
the
setting.
on and off switch.
Yes.
So 1, 2, 3.
Screen off.
Screen
Camera.
off.
Take photo.
Take
Okay.
photo.
Double tap to activate.
Um,
Actions
let's see.
available.
So
Use tap with 3 fingers to view.
go to settings, accessibility,
Rate 100.
and you go all the way down to the bottom, and there's this thing called accessibility shortcut.
Screenshot. Selected. Dismiss. Viewfinder. Window camera.
Yeah, I'm on the camera right now, and I can't even get away from my camera.
Okay, no worries.
Um,
This happens every time that I do testing with somebody that hasn't
Rate 1.
really messed with this too much.
Speech rate
So-
100. Speech rate 100%. Swipe up.
So
with-
you're on the camera.
Swipe down with 3 fingers to select a different setting. Photo setting. Photo settings. Double tap to activate. Photo
So which settings are you on?
I'm just on the
Change
camera.
accessibility volume. Hold
Okay.
finger on the screen and press
Um,
volume up or
You should be
volume
able to get to the close button by swiping left.
down. Switch to
Isn't there a close button on the top left?
Switch to
Or an X? Little X control.
expanded. Photo.
If I turn my phone on and off, will it just exit this accessibility?
Swipe up with 3 fingers or swipe down with expand.
I think so, actually.
Let me give it a shot.
Doesn't, then it should be pretty easy to get through the setup from there
Screenshot.
and to turn it back on or turn it back off.
Restart. Dismiss. Restart. Double. Dismiss screenshot.
Yeah,
tap
restarting.
to activate.
No worries. All right, while you're doing that, I'll just go ahead and pull it up on my iOS device and we can walk through it here. Okay, triple tapping, turning on voiceover.
VoiceOver on. Sphinx, Primal, Signal, Mastodon, Simplex, Element, Jitsi B, Proton Wallet.
So I landed on Proton Wallet. I'm going to double tap to open it.
Proton Wallet, button, image, menu.
Okay, so it says Proton Wallet button image menu.
Lock screen.
On the hamburger control at the top left, it's really hard to see in this camera because you can't see it. But if I swipe to the right, it's going to announce the next thing in the
No
reading.
screen.
Wallet, heading.
2120.
And in my case, that's my wallet, and it says it's a heading. It doesn't announce the heading level, so that's an important thing to note about iOS. That it doesn't always announce the heading level.
To access.
So that's normal.
Button, image.
If I swipe one more time, I get to the settings icon, and it says button image. So that's an unlabeled button. So that's the first issue that I found. An unlabeled settings button. Okay, then if I swipe to the right again, nothing is announced. So I've received focus on some sort of something, some object on the screen, but it's not announcing anything. So that's another issue. So we have a non-interactive element in the focus order or in the screen reading order. Okay, if I swipe right again,
All accounts. $0 $1. BTC. Start your journey. Add Bitcoins to your wallet. Explore Proton Wallet.
okay, so now it's reading out the entire page, which is kind of interesting. It should only read the amount and the paragraph of text at the top. So I would say that there's another reading order issue there. And then if you noticed, it was announcing 1.000, and I have zero Bitcoin on this wallet, so it should just announce 0.00. I'm not sure why it announced all that other
All
stuff.
accounts. Image. All account. Image. Receive. Image.
Okay, so next to there's an image that says I. Maybe that's helpful, maybe not.
Image. Image.
There's no state that is being announced on that. So basically, we have an icon that looks like an eye that allows you to hide your amount for privacy, right? But when I toggle that, it doesn't tell me whether it's turned on or turned off. So if I'm a privacy conscious screen reader user and I want to have somebody help me with my wallet, or I want to receive some funds, but I don't want people to see how much Bitcoin I have in my wallet, I want to have that turned on, and I want to know that it's turned on. So there's a toggle button that is not announcing the toggled state.
Receive. Image.
So that's another issue.
Receive. Button.
I swipe to the right, I hear receive button.
Send. Button.
I swipe again, I hear send button. That's good so far.
Invite your friends.
The next thing says invite your friends. And I know this is a link because I can tap on it and activate it. However, it did not tell me that it's a link. So invite friends should be coded as a link, and it's not. So that's an issue. So the role is not being announced to the screen reader user.
Secure your wallet.
If I swipe again, it says secure your wallet. That's another button or link, one of the two, but it is also not announcing the role. So that's the same issue again.
Transactions.
I hear transactions, which is at the start of the section of content. And it looks like a heading, so it should be a heading, but it's not announcing as a heading. So that's another issue. I swipe to the right. There's this little icon that looks like a refresh icon, but it doesn't announce anything. So I don't even know if I've landed on an actual element.
Proceed. Button.
And then when I swipe again, it skips past some text. So there's a reading order issue.
Bitcoin Guide for Newcomers. We review some important history and features of Bitcoin for newcomers.
And we're down into the Explore Proton Wallet content.
We explain why Proton Wallet was created and what benefits it can bring to the Proton community. Image.
So these are images of text, but they've provided text alternatives, which is actually pretty good. But they're also buttons or controls that I can tap on and go to another screen, right? So they really should be announcing a role as well.
Proton Wallet launch. We explain why Proton Alert.
So those are some of the issues that I found just briefly trying to navigate with iOS.
So I had to turn off my accessibility because it was quite glitchy. So
No worries. So next time you turn it on, just make sure that before you turn it on, you go down to the very bottom and you go to what I mentioned was accessibility shortcut at the very bottom.
Okay.
And if you open that up, there's like a list of items that you can check. And so like what I have checked on mine is assistive touch, color filters, full keyboard access, increased contrast, magnifier, reduce motion, switch control, voiceover, and zoom. And those are the things that I use the most often. There's a bunch of options there. A lot of them are very niche options that are very specific to certain disability types and use cases. I don't think that you need to test with all of them, to be honest. But it is good to know they're there.
And sorry, which was the button that you said when you activate the home? Sorry, the on and off button. It's going to. Oh, here it is. Switch access off or control device with switches. Oh no, no.
No, that's not it. So the accessibility shortcut is what you're looking for. So
Yeah.
if you go to VoiceOver, I think it's there as well.
Here you can accessibility shortcuts.
Yes, that's the one.
Okay, found it.
Cool. All right, so now you know for next time.
Yeah.
So did anybody else have any luck navigating with the screen reader?
I was able to do it using tab, but I couldn't do it and then listen at the same time because it was like two voices. So I just kind of briefly navigated with tab and I was following along.
Excellent.
But yeah, it worked quite well. I was able to tab and I even opened up a dialogue and then it's like dialogue and then I hit tab again. Then it started cycling through all the language options, English, whatever.
Cool. What about D? Were you able to get talkback running?
No, I got stuck. Sign up. Basically, not even able to sign up to Proton.
Okay, no worries at all. That's
my network is abusive, so
that's okay. That's why we do this, right? So that we can kind of flesh out some of these issues and figure out what we need to know for the next time we go back and test. So what I'll do right now is I'll go ahead and share my screen and we'll walk through just testing with the screen reader on the web version of the app. So let me find the right one. Here we go. Hopefully you can see my screen still. Okay. Let me know if you cannot. Okay, so I'm on the Proton Wallet home screen. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on VoiceOver. I'm using a Mac right now. So Command F5.
VoiceOver on Chrome. Proton Wallet. Google Chrome. Window. Heading level 1. My wallet.
And I'm using Google Chrome to test as well. So the first thing it announces My Wallet heading level 1. That's great, actually. That tells me that I'm on the main content of the page.
Syncing new data.
Okay, it just made an update, and it told me it was syncing new data. That's also good. That's a status update. It's letting me know that something has changed in the UI that may require my attention. So I'm going to use Control, Alt, and the arrow keys. If I'm using my Mac keys, it's going to be Control, Option, arrow keys. But I'm going to Control, Alt, and go to the right.
Edit button. You are currently on a button. To click this button, press Control, Option, Space.
Cool. It says Edit button. So that is very useful information. It's telling me what the role is. It's telling me what the name of the button is. Even though it has just an icon and there's no text, it's telling me it's an edit button. So I'm going to go to the right.
Secure your wallet, button, group. You are currently on a button, group. To click this button, press Control, Option, Space.
So that one's probably got something funky going on with it. They might have a set of nested controls there because it's announcing secure your wallet twice. So we want to inspect that in the DOM and see exactly what's causing that issue. But we'll continue with the screen reader.
Invite your friends, button. You are currently on a button. To click this button,
So far,
press
so good.
Control, upgrade, button, group. You are
This one's
currently on a
announcing
button,
twice
group.
again as
To
well.
click this
So
button,
that's
press
another little
Control,
minor
Option,
issue
Space.
that you want to look for when you're testing.
Button. You are currently on a button. To click this button, press Control, Option, Space.
Now this one is completely unlabeled, but it is announcing the role, so that's helpful. I know that it's something I can activate, but I don't know what it is. So let me try and activate it. Oops. Okay. So there is no announcement of any kind of state change at all, so I don't know that I activated anything. Probably not that critical. This is just dark mode versus light mode, and if I'm using a screen reader, I'm probably not going to be too worried about that. But I'm not going to know what I selected, right? Or whether there's anything important I need to do there.
All accounts. You are currently on a text element.
Okay, this is all accounts. This likely should be a heading 2 because it's like sub-content of the heading 1. We'll continue on.
$. You are currently on a text element.
Okay.
0. You are currently on a text element. Period. 0. You are currently in a groove. To
Okay.
exit this groove, press Control, Option, Shift, Up arrow.
That's announcing fairly okay. Ideally, we'd want it to announce 0.00 in one chunk, but it's okay if it announces this way as long as it's accurate.
$0. Period. 0. Show balance. Toggle button.
Okay, so
You are
now I have
currently
that
on a
same
toggle button.
eye
To select or
icon,
deselect this checkbox, press Control, Option, Space.
but it's telling me to show balance, and it's a toggle button. So that's much more helpful and useful information than I got on iOS. So let's toggle the button and see if it tells us the new state.
Selected. Show balance. Toggle button.
Okay, so it says selected, show balance, toggle button. So the name of the control changed.
Show balance. Toggle button.
Actually,
Selected. Show balance. Show
It did not
balance.
change.
Toggle button.
okay, show balance. Yeah, it's a little bit confusing, right? So you have the state that's being announced when it's selected.
Selected. Show balance. Toggle button.
It says selected, show balance, toggle button, but it's not showing my balance, right? So that's a bit confusing there. I don't know whether my balance is showing or not. So something you would want to do there is ensure that you have either a name change of the button to show balance or hide balance, or that you provide a toggle state that makes sense, right? So if it's visible by default, then it should say hide balance. And then when you toggle the selected state of that, it should say hide balance selected. And in that case, I would know that I have hidden my balance. Continue moving on a little bit.
Star BTC.
Okay.
You are currently on a text
Fine.
element. Bitcoin image. You are currently
Good.
on an image. To begin interacting with
It's
the
probably
contents
a
of this
decorative
press
image. We could
Control,
probably
Option,
go ahead
Shift,
and
down arrow.
remove that because we have text right next to it that says the same thing.
Bitcoin. You are currently at BTC. You are currently on a text element. Current price. You are currently on a text element. $102.
Okay, so the reading order here is correct. So
currently
it's
on a
reading the
text
current
element.
price, and then it's telling me it's the text element. If I keep going forward, it starts reading the current price. What we don't want to see is we don't want to see it go from current price to 24-hour change to the first number to the second number, right? So this is good.
$100, 900 period 00 24H change. You are
24H
currently on a
change,
text at
good.
0.80. You are current percent.
Okay.
You are image. You are currently on an image.
So
to
this-
begin interacting with the contents of this image, press Control, Option, Shift, down arrow.
Yeah, this image doesn't have any alt text, so I'm not gonna know what it is at all.
Maybe it's just me, but I only see the My Wallet with the price on it. I'm not sure if your screen is frozen or if maybe I can't see the screen reader. Is there supposed to be an image on the screen? Oh, now I see you. Okay.
Okay.
Horizontal image.
Yeah, you don't see
You
the
are
focus.
currently on
Do
an
you?
image.
That's
To
weird.
begin
Okay.
interacting with the contents
So I'm
of this
seeing
image,
focus
press
right
Control,
here
Option,
around
Shift.
this
Okay, got it. That's what they're calling the image. Got it.
D, the image is the chart.
Cool.
Horizontal splitter.
So
You are
that can
currently
be
on a
hidden from
horizontal
screen
splitter.
reader
To
users.
start
We
interacting
don't
with
need
the
to know
splitter,
that.
press send dim button.
So
You are
send
currently
dim
on a
button.
button.
That's
Yeah,
very
dim.
important
You gave the
to
state.
understand that this control is disabled, right? So on iOS or on a Mac, when a control is disabled, it's going to say dimmed. So that's very helpful information about the state of that control. I know that I cannot select it right now, but in the future I might be able to.
Receive button. You are
Good.
currently on a buy button. You are currently on a button. To
All
click
good
this
there?
heading level 2 transactions.
Okay, now this
You
is
are
announcing
currently on
heading level
level
2
two.
transactions, whereas on iOS it was not announcing it as a heading. So, so they're doing a little bit more. They're doing a lot better in the web UI as far as accessibility goes than the iOS version. I'm not sure about TalkBack. I need to test that one, but yeah, there's a lot of good markup here.
Sync button.
Sync
You are
button,
currently on
that's
a button.
good.
Ascending order button.
Sending
You
order
are currently
button,
on a button.
that's good.
To click this button, start your journey. Add bitcoins to your wallet. Receive button. Buy button. You are currently on a button. To
Okay.
click this button, receive button.
So that's everything
You are
for
currently
the
on a
most
button.
part.
To click
Now,
this button,
there's
press
also
Control,
this
Option, Space.
Sorry. There's also this menu on the left-hand side. I'm not sure how to get to it. It's good that it dropped me in past that menu to by default to begin with. It dropped me on my wallet, which is the first heading on the page, so that I don't have to go through all this menu navigation on the left just to get into the wallet, right? But I don't even know that it's there at this point as a screen reader user until I tab all the way through the page. So let's go tab through the rest of the page and see if we can get to that menu.
Buy button. Leaving Proton. Leaving toolbar item palette. Entering Proton wallet web content. Visited link image. Proton wallet. You are Proton applications. Collapse button.
Okay.
You are jhestertester@gmail.com. Collapse button. Less than jhestertester.
Okay, so it says it's a
gmail.com
collapse
greater
button.
than. You are currently on a button inside of web content. To click this button, press Control Option Space. To exit this web area, press Control Option Shift up arrow.
So since it's announcing that it's a collapse button, that generally means it's probably some sort of disclosure. So I could probably activate it and open something up. So let's see what happens.
Review account safety link and 7 more items. Dialog. You are
Excellent.
currently on a link
So
inside
it
of web
announces
content.
I'm in a
To click this
dialogue
link,
now.
press
It announces
Control
the name of the
Option
dialogue.
Space. To exit this web area, press Control Option Shift up arrow. jhestertester@gmail.com button. Free. You are currently on a text element inside of
So
web
that
content.
should be
to exit this web
a
area,
button as
press
well.
Control link upgrade. Go to subscription
link.
plans. Free. Link upgrade.
So
Go to subscription
at
plans.
least that's
You are
an
currently on a
interactive
link
element.
inside of web jhestertester main heading level 2 navigation list 6 items. Heading level 3 wallets 1 of 6.
Good. They have some
Wallet.
heading structure
You are
there.
currently on a heading level 3. More options. Collapsed button.
More options. That's
List
good.
1 item level 2. You are currently in a list.
So it's telling me I'm in a list. That's very helpful. I know that there's probably a number of items here that I can select.
Current page. Visited link. Collapse wallets my wallet.
It tells me current
You are
page
currently on a link.
That means
To
they're
click this
using
link,
ARIA
press
current.
Control Option Space.
to indicate that this is the currently selected page that I'm on. That's very helpful information. Lets me know that I'm on the My Wallet page.
List 3 items. Level 3.
Okay,
You
now
are
here's
currently
3
in a
items in the list.
Link. Primary account. Link. Bitcoin via email. 2 of 3. Add account. Button. Group. You are currently on a button. Group. To click this button, press Control Option Space.
Okay, so not too bad.
End of list. End of list. Upgrade. Button. Group. Link. Discover. 3 of 6. Visited. Link. User settings. Expand user settings. 4 of 6.
So it
You are
says
currently on
expand
a
user
link.
settings.
Click
So let's see what
this
happens when I
link. Press
expand
Control
this one.
Option Space. Found 0 suggestions. Use keyboard to navigate.
It takes
You
me
are
through a whole
currently on
other
a group.
page, which
Inside
is
of web
not what I
visit. Link.
expected.
Image. Proton app back to wallet. Button.
So let's go back.
Loading Proton wallet loading. You are currently syncing new data.
All right, so I think we can go ahead and just wrap it up right there since we don't have a whole lot of time. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the screen reader.
Voiceover off.
But those are some of the kind of things we're looking for when we're testing with the screen reader, right? We want to make sure that we have proper heading structure on the page that's announcing the correct level, right? So we have a My Wallet heading. It's heading level 1. We have transactions. It's heading level 2. We have wallets. It's heading level 3. That's all very good for understanding the structure of the page. We want to make sure that all of the controls are labeled with have their appropriate role announced. So if it's a link, it announces a link. If it's a button, it announces a button. If it's a toggle button, it announces a toggle button, etc. And then we also want to ensure that we have the appropriate states being announced for all of these elements as well. So if it's a toggle button, we need to know that it's toggled and selected. If it is a disclosure, we need to know whether it's expanded or collapsed. So I think they did a pretty good job actually with the web version of this wallet. So if I have a screen reader user friend and they're asking what desktop wallet to use and they want to try Proton Wallet, I would certainly push them towards the desktop version on the web, which looks like it's going to be a lot more accessible.
Yeah.
So any questions at this point?
How would you sort of rate this accessibility testing that you've done in terms of only based on voiceover? Would you give it
Only based on voiceover? This is not too bad. I've seen much worse.
Okay.
So yeah, this is not too bad. The only thing that is a bit tricky here is, well, actually that was announcing properly on the web as well. So I think that's fine. But yeah, there was like this button here that didn't have any indication of what it was, whether it was even a button. Yeah, the toggle state was a little funny. This user settings, they put an ARIA expanded on it. So if we inspect it, we can take a look at some of this stuff, right? So this is normally what I do. I'm normally just looking in here because for me, it's a lot easier to test this way. But I always start out, testing with a screen reader and getting a general understanding of the page before I jump in here, because I want to make sure that there's nothing that I miss, right?
Yeah.
But once I know kind of like the general layout and how things are generally announcing, then I can kind of dive in and look a little deeper and see like what's going on in certain areas. Like, so in this case, what do we have here? We have a link, and there's this accessibility tab, which I would recommend using. So if you are using Chrome, you can right click, and you're on a web application, you can right click on any element and inspect it, and it will pull up this context menu. You can move it over to the bottom or the side or resize it as you need. But there's also this little sub menu with styles, computed layout, event listeners, and accessibility. And accessibility is a very important tab to select because it will give you the information that is being announced to the screen reader. So if I'm selecting the interactive element, which is the anchor here, it will announce what the name is. So the name is user settings, expand user settings. Okay, cool. So they didn't actually add an RA expanded here. They basically hard coded the RA expanded into the name of the control. So they were trying to do the right thing. They probably went a little bit overboard. This isn't really an expand button, because if I click on it, it takes me to another page. So yeah, not terrible. But it could be improved. Any other questions on this before we move on?
So far, so good.
Cool. All right. So one other thing I want to show while we're here is this Lighthouse tool. So if you have Chrome and you're inspecting it, Lighthouse should be part of your tool set for the dev tools. So this is actually a really quick and easy way to do an automated accessibility check on the page. So what I can do is I can click Analyze Page Load, and I make sure that I have the category for accessibility checked. And I'm going to say that this is desktop. And let's see what errors it brings up. So this is using the Axe Core engine in the background, which is a set of open source rules for accessibility that check against WCAG 2.2. So pretty good. This one's saying it's 94% accessible, or 94 as the score. I think it's a weighted score. But there's some things that it asks us to go ahead and double check, right? So buttons do not have an accessible name, so it's pointing to this failing element. So I'd want to basically use this XPath and find this element and see if there's anything going on with it, right? But it gives me a little code snippet and shows me that we have a button here. We have the opening of the button and the close of the button, but we don't see anything in here that labels the button. And that is correct, because that is the one we were looking at earlier that did not have an accessible name, right? So we can save a lot of time by using some of these automated tools. I wouldn't rely on them 100%. I would start with screen reader testing, move to focusing on the areas in the screen reader testing that you found issues with, and then running the automated scanner to see if there's anything else that you might have missed.
When you say automated scanner, which one are you referring to, Jason?
So this is Lighthouse.
Okay.
Yeah. So that one is already built into Chrome DevTools.
Right. You just right click inspect.
Correct. Eric, are you able to find this one since you're on?
Yeah, I've used Lighthouse before.
Cool.
I find that it always, I didn't realize you said it's a weighted score, but maybe that explains why, but I find it always gives high scores. That's why I was kind of confused by it.
Yeah, I wouldn't go off the score itself. I would go off, I would just follow the recommendations of where to look next, right? Like buttons do not have an accessible name. Additional items to manually check. It gives you a whole list of things, right? So interactive elements are keyboard focusable. So it's telling you to double check that, right? Because it doesn't know for sure. It ran the test. It thinks it passed some of these things, but it's saying double check these things. Quite often we get either false positives or we miss things, right? And it's just the nature of automated testing in general. So it gives you a really good hand-holding guide to kind of walk you through what to test next, which is very helpful. Another one that I use quite often is going to be this tool. Let's see, which one is it? The in the Arc Developer Tools. So you have it turned on. Let's see. Yeah, Arc Toolkit is another one. So this is one that my company actually creates. But I can run a quick test here, and it's going to give me a bunch of alerts, and it's going to tell me kind of where to look next, right? So very similar concept, a different rule set. So you may find some differences between the two rule sets. This one, we get a total score, but it's based on the errors, and this one is a weighted score. But yeah, it's showing us a few errors here and a few alerts and a few best practices to check. So that's just another way of testing with one of these automated tools. So let's just jump back into the presentation and see if we can get a little bit further before the end of the call.
Yep.
So we went through our live testing demonstration. We looked for missing labels and accessible QR codes, logical reading order, keyword focus order, things like that. We talked about some of the testing tools in a browser. So here's some links to them. So Lighthouse is the one that I mentioned that uses ACT score. The Arc Toolkit is another one that uses the TPGI rule set, which is just a separate rule set than ACT score. So you might find some differences. It's probably good to use both so you make sure that you don't miss anything. Then there's another tool called Wave by WebAIM, which is very similar to the first two, and it's going to give you some areas to check. It's not as useful, in my opinion, as the first two, but it may be a little bit more user-friendly for somebody who's first getting into accessibility. And then Accessibility Insights is going to be something that you can use to test desktop applications as well as web. And that's a Microsoft tool. I haven't really used it too much, but I can see how it could be very useful for somebody developing a Windows application, right? Because there's not a whole lot of testing tools around that.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a lot of these resources in the resources guide, so please take a look there. There's a lot more that I've listed that aren't here. Testing tools for contrast. We talked a little bit earlier about Stark, which is a Figma plugin, which allows you to do contrast and alt text in your design mockups. We have the TPGI Color Contrast Analyzer, which is like the go-to tool that pretty much everyone in the accessibility industry has been using for many years. Although we have more tools that are being developed in the browser and in DevTools, which make it even easier to check for contrast, right? So I'm not sure if it's showing up. Well, I don't think it's going to show up here on this machine, but I know that Chrome's DevTools, they did an update just recently, and on certain elements, if you go into the style of the, if you inspect the element and you go into the styles and you select the color, it will actually show you the contrast, and it'll tell you whether it meets WCAG 2.2. And it'll tell you whether it meets it for small text and large text. And then it gives you like a graph in a color palette where you can kind of select something in this channel to ensure that you're getting the correct contrast for that element. So it's actually very helpful when selecting a color, right? If you have a color that's failing, but you want to get something similar to it, you can open that up and then find another color in this channel that will meet the contrast requirements, but is also very similar to the previous color. And then there's the OPCA contrast calculator, which I mentioned on the previous call. This is just a different way of testing for readability and contrast.
Mm-hmm.
It uses a few more. That's what I'm looking for. A few more features to look at, right? So it counts, font weight, font style, and the size, in addition to contrast and the background color, right? So, it's better at detecting the readable contrast level. So testing tools on mobile, there's Accessibility Scanner, which I mentioned earlier. This one's by Google. There's Android Accessibility Inspector. This is actually one that one of my coworkers created as a side project. which is pretty cool. So it's a node tree inspector for Android. Before this, there wasn't one, right? So it was very difficult to get into the weeds on how things are being or how a UI operates under the hood from an accessibility perspective. You really just had to test with a screen reader before and kind of guess at what was going on. But now with the Android Accessibility Inspector, you can dive a lot further into the node tree and see exactly what's going on, exactly what type of traits are being applied to each element, and things like that. And then Xcode Accessibility Inspector is one for Apple iOS. It's in Xcode, so you'll need to plug your phone in and you will need to open up Xcode. But it is another tool that allows you to do some automated accessibility testing directly in an app. Some comments.
Yes, and there is anything for desktop that make tree analysis that allow to understand the hierarchy of an application.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
Wondering if there is an application to analyze the tree information on desktop application.
Oh, on a desktop application. Yeah, that's a good question. I think the one that I mentioned previously, what was it?
Or the Microsoft one, Accessibility Insights.
Accessibility Insights. Yeah, that one. That's going to be the best one
Yeah,
for Microsoft.
okay. Yeah, that's the one I've been using. Okay, great, thanks.
Sure. So some common accessibility mistakes that we're finding in a lot of Bitcoin wallets, things like keyboard traps. So this is all from the accessibility page of the Bitcoin Design Guide. So a lot of research went into this. Congrats to Mo and Christoph for putting all this together.
Yeah.
I know it was a lot of work, and it was at a time when I couldn't really contribute anything. So you guys did an excellent job here putting together this information. But yeah, these are the things that we want to look out for. So a keyboard trap is just like, for example, a modal dialog that opens up that you can't get out of, right? That would be a keyboard trap. So when you have a modal, you want to make sure that you're able to exit it in some way, shape, or form. If it's on mobile, you want to have like a close control. If it's on desktop, you want to at least be able to close it with the escape control, and probably also include a close control there as well. Things like invisible buttons. So there's like floating buttons, right? That's a very common design pattern in a lot of apps. Problem with those is quite often they're not part of the focus order or the reading order. So if I'm using a screen reader and I'm trying to navigate to this button, it keeps moving down the page or moving up the page because it's a floating button. And then even when I get down to the bottom of the screen and go back up to the top of the screen, it skips over. So, there's no way that I can access these floating controls in a lot of cases, and that's an issue. Missing text alternatives. I think everyone kind of knows what that is. Make sure you just have an alt text or some other text alternative for anything that's a meaningful image. Unlabeled buttons, that's a huge one, which we already walked through. Elements lacking visible focus. Eric, you asked the question about that. Sounds very helpful. And then QR-only interactions with no alt text. So if you have a QR code, let the user know, especially if they're using a screen reader. They want to know that they can receive, get paid, or vice versa.
I have a question about the keyboard traps.
Sure.
The modal example that you brought up, I frequently design a lot of bottom sheet modals, which are, and a lot of the times I don't include a clear close because I rely on the gesture. So, especially quite common with Apple, they have that kind of handle at the top. Yeah, the pull handle. The pull handle is a way to exit, but it's gesture-based exit. It's not a tap-based thing in most cases.
Right.
How does that create a keyboard trap, or?
It could potentially. It really depends on the app. I've seen it in cases where it does create a keyboard trap actually on iOS, but I've also seen it done where I can tap on another area of the screen and it closes it. Right. So
yeah,
I think it really depends on how your app's.
Got it.
But ideally you want to have a close control there, just because. Yeah, screen reader user might not know how to do that.
Nice. Good stuff. We're at the hour now. I don't know if you
Okay, I just have a couple more slides. I'll just go through them real quickly and then we can wrap up here. So accessible design patterns, I've listed a bunch of them here. Way ARIA APG is the one that you want to go to for like a good canonical source of accessibility patterns from the W3C. So it's like a good reference design, right? So they have things like buttons, they have select drop downs, they have combo boxes, they have accordions, most of the common web type of components that you see pretty commonly. And they have a good accessible version of it that you can kind of reference when you're building your own. Things like dialogues, buttons, disclosures, landmarks, they all need certain attributes to be marked up. Generally, if you're using HTML, then you're not going to have to use as much ARIA markup. But if you're not using HTML or you're using or you're creating a custom component, then you will need to add some ARIA, such as an ARIA role or an ARIA labeled by, to announce the name of a control and the type of control that it is. And then just recently, I've been looking through some other component libraries, and this one called Inclusive Components is really good. And that's a really good web-based reference for all types of real-world UI patterns. And this is done by Hayden Pickering, who's an accessibility expert. He's been around in the field for quite a long time. It's pretty famous. So I would definitely recommend that as a secondary resource to the W3C's Way ARIA APG patterns. And then Shad CNUI. Somebody mentioned this the other day that I met at the hackathon, I believe. I forget exactly who it was. It was somebody in the Discord. But I was looking at this one, and it looks like it's a pretty accessible set of components, and they're very basic, and they allow you to be able to style them with Tailwind pretty easily. So, and then view accessibility. They also have a lot of good resources there on exactly how to implement their components accessibly. So those are some things to take a look at if you're developing any kind of progressive web application. And that's pretty much it. So what I would ask everyone here to do is, go through your favorite wallets, find accessibility issues, and then see if you could submit an issue to their GitHub. Maybe they even have a bounty that you don't know about, and you can get paid for it. So and if you know how to fix it, if it's a simple issue, you can add a role or label and submit a PR and get it fixed, get it merged. And then join the accessibility channel here in Discord and ask lots of questions. So that's it for me today.
very nicely done. Thank you so much.
Very informative, yeah.
Yeah, I love the hands-on approach as well, like getting us to do things and then really seeing how hard it is. And it was nice to go through Proton Wallet on the desktop as well.
Yeah, it's good to see the differences, right?
Yeah,
I'm not sure
100%.
how they built it, but yeah, there's some big differences between iOS and I'm not sure about Android because I haven't had a chance to test it yet. But iOS and desktop are definitely very different. So
Yeah, for sure. Let me go ahead and stop the record. Well, thank you, Margaret, for joining, and Eric as well. And for those of you watching, take on the call to action and go check out issues and explore if there's any bounties. So, yeah.
Yep. Thanks, everyone.
thanks.
Thank you, Jason. Would you like to say any parting words, Jason? This is your.
I just really appreciate everyone coming out today and supporting me for Accessibility Day. And yeah, there's nothing I'd rather be doing than helping out my favorite project. So thank you all.
Amazing.
Nice. Thanks,
Thank you.
Jason.
Thanks for your time. See you guys online.
All right. Take
See you
care.
online.